Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is the BookTube Trope tag. So interestingly enough, this is the beginning of the tag, as in nobody's done this tag before. However, I got the idea from mynameismarines. She recently released a video called Am I a BookTube Trope, in which she talked about different tropes about BookTube, and I contacted her and said, hey, can I turn this into a tag? Because in this discussion video she mentioned 7 different tropes about BookTube, and I figured that everyone should discuss these. So I figured what better way to spread the word than with the tried and true tag method. So I have here 7 different things that people say about booktubers, and we're just gonna discuss them a little bit. As you go through these tropes, just feel free to tell us whether or not you fall into this stereotype, whether or not you don't, whether you think it's ridiculous, whatever you want to say about it, you say about it. The first trope is actually perfect considering which of my many book shirts I'm wearing right now. That trope is booktubers hate libraries. This is one of my 3 when in doubt go to the library shirts. Yes, I own 3 of them. 2 of them are the same design but different colors, and then this one from the HBA. So there is a misconception that people on BookTube do not go to libraries, they don't use that as a resource, and it's part of the consumerism mentality that they buy all these books or get them sent to them for free from publishers and that type of thing. And no. For example, I can show you the pie chart of how many books I read from the library versus bought or borrowed from other people from 2018. I will pull that up now. I really love when in-video Kathy makes editing Kathy do work. Look, I get it, there might be some people who have the money or have the availability to hold up the actual physical book in every single video they do. If that's the case and that's what they want to spend their money on, that's perfectly fine. You know who doesn't hold up a physical book in most of her videos? This girl. You know why? Because I read so many books from the library that I never have them all in one place at the same time. Not to mention, not all of the books I get from the library are physical books. I also listen to e-audiobooks and I sometimes read e-books. And for this one, it also totally depends on your volume of reading. There are booktubers out there who only read a handful of books every year, and yes, that means that they can afford every single thing they read that year. I cannot afford to buy every book that I read in a year. Last year I read 237 books. No. The cost of all of those books is probably more than I made last year. So no, BookTube doesn't hate libraries. For example, the Library-A-Thon is a readathon on BookTube. Library 411 tag is a tag on BookTube. And there are certain people who work at libraries who are on BookTube. Trope number 2 is booktubers are book hoarders. Now, I'm not going to rule this one out as a possibility. I'm sure there are a few people out there who are in fact book hoarders. And there's no right or wrong in this. If you want to hoard books and it makes you happy, you go right ahead and hoard those books. However, it comes down to the economics of owning all those books. Can I afford all of the books that I want? No. Do I hold on to books for books' sakes? No. However, on the flip side of that, I have been guilty of picking up books that people just leave outside their houses in my neighborhood, because that's how people in my neighborhood get rid of things. They just leave them outside and other people pick them up. I have picked up those books just so they don't get stuck in the rain and brought them into my house, but then eventually I take them to one of the many free little libraries around town. So although I will admit there are different levels of book hoarding on BookTube, I don't think it's fair to say that all booktubers are hoarders. Number 3 is BookTube hates paperbacks. Off the top of my head, I can think of at least one username that has paperback in it. But then again, I can also think of one that has hardback in it. Again, this is another one of those nuances. For me personally, I don't really care what the physical form of the book I'm reading is, because chances are I got it from the library, I got it for free, and I didn't have to pay for it. So as long as it has the words on the pages and I get to read the words, I'm pretty happy. Sometimes hardbacks are more aesthetically pleasing and easier to put on your bookshelves in a pleasing way. But then again, more often than not, the paperback has the same cover as the hardback and it's equally stunning. Trope number 4 is booktubers only give positive reviews. Here's the thing. No. If I don't like a book, I will tell you I didn't like the book. In fact, it has become quite popular to tell people why you didn't like a book in a ranting type of format. However, on the flip side of that, I personally try to seek out books that I know I'm going to like, and therefore I obviously give more good reviews than bad reviews. I find it very difficult to struggle bust my way through a book that I'm not enjoying, and I would just end up DNFing it if that were the case. Although there is a book I've recently picked up because I do want to do a video all about it, because I know what it's about, and I know I'm gonna struggle through it because I'm gonna hate it because it's gonna be weird. But that's a whole different video. I just have a problem with the mentality of people watching videos and being upset that people are excited about books, and thinking that clearly they can't be excited about all of these books they've talked about. Because I mean, yeah, you can. Have you met bibliophiles? We're very excited about books. Trope number 5 is booktubers are just doing this for the money. I find this trope especially hilarious because every time I tell people in person that I make YouTube videos, they're like, oh, do you make a lot of money doing that? And I just laugh in their face. I've never made any money from doing this. And I definitely didn't get into doing this to make money. That is a terrible way to try to make money. Firstly, unless you want to be stuck with Windows Movie Maker, you have to invest in a decent editing program. I am very lucky in that my friend Chad has a license for Premiere Pro and I am able to use his license. But only when he's not using it to do his own actual work that he gets paid for. Then you have to have things like a camera, and yes, people have cell phones now and cameras are in their pockets and that type of thing, but then things like tripods. Those cost money. Because I'm broke, I didn't actually have a tripod until about a year into making YouTube videos. I would just stack my camera on top of a bunch of books on a stool. It is only because my friend Danielle had 2 tripods and didn't need both of them that I took one from her. I've definitely spent more money and time doing this than I've gotten out of it money-wise. Did I come here to make money? No. I came here to make friends, I came here to talk about books, I came here to have experiences with people online. Would I say no to somebody wanting to pay me to do this? It kind of depends, actually. There are some cases in which case I would say no. For example, if I didn't want to work with that particular person, or if it was such a small amount of money that I would be scared as to how my taxes would work out, because I do my own taxes and I'm a big chicken about it, so I don't know how that would work. That is one of the random bonuses of this channel being too small to monetize, is I don't have to worry about taxes. The 6th trope is all booktubers are teenage girls. You know what? YouTube didn't even exist when I was a teenage girl. I will not deny that there are teenage girls on the platform. Clearly there are. But I am just definitely not one of them. I also just didn't get into even viewing YouTube until I was in my late 20s. When YouTube started out as being a thing that people would watch specific channels frequently instead of just being a thing for cat videos, I didn't have the internet at home. I lived in Ireland, I tried to get the internet at home, and the router was a piece of junk, didn't work, didn't have the internet. I would have to go to cyber cafes, and I'm not going to spend my time on YouTube, especially YouTube of then, when I'm paying by the minute. All of that was a very long-winded way of saying I'm old. I'm not a teenager. I haven't been for a very long time. And the final trope is actually something that Mario only mentioned during kind of the end screen of her video, and that's that booktubers review and recommend books that they haven't read. Here's the thing, sometimes I talk about books I haven't read, but you know when I talk about them? When I'm putting them on a TBR. And I'm pretty sure that anytime I've seen somebody put a book they haven't read on a recommendation list, they've said that they haven't read it and they are only taking the recommendation from somebody else. Do you know how hard it is to review books without reading them? And I'm not talking about wrapping up books you haven't read before, because I definitely did that in high school a couple of times. I'm talking about doing an actual review. In order to do an actual review of a book that you haven't read, you would have to go and read and watch other reviews of a book you haven't read. And you know what's a better idea than doing that? Just reading the book. Of course people read the books they review. And I have no problem with people putting a book they haven't read on a recommendation list if it has been recommended by somebody they trust. It always seems to be preempted with, I haven't read this yet, but so-and-so said that they really enjoyed it because of the writing or the style or whatever it was they enjoyed. So I don't know, maybe this became a trope because people watched way too many hauls where people hadn't read the books that they'd hauled, because you tend to, you know, buy books you haven't read so you can read them, figure out whether or not you like them, unhaul them if you don't, keep them if you do, and then review them. And now we've gotten to the part of the video where you're supposed to tag people. Usually I'm very guilty of skipping this step, but I'm going to leave some people tagged down below for you to check out, and then also I hope these people did the tag. I mostly wanted to make this in a tag format so we could have these types of conversations, because I love watching discussion videos, but sometimes I just want them to be opened up to a broader audience who doesn't always watch discussion videos but prefers tags. But that's all I have for the BookTube Trope tag. If you have more tropes, let me know about them down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!